Welcome to Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Max Reimer. Today we are getting away from politics for politics' sake and talking instead about something that all of us conservatives and Republicans deeply care about, and that is our veterans and veterans' mental health and helping folks get over things like PTSD and reintegrating into society. Today we have a very special guest, Nick Rahn with Warrior's Next Adventure. He has a gala coming up towards the end of the year, which I want to make sure you all stick around to find out more about, because it's very important that we all get in touch with this subject and really know it intimately. Nick, thanks for joining the Republican Roundtable.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So let's talk a little bit about your organization, how the idea came about, and who you are, a little bit of your background. Let's start there. And how did you come up with this idea?
Well, I'm an Air Force veteran. I served 6 years in the Air Force from 2006 until 2012. I served 4 tours overseas, went to Iraq twice, went to Afghanistan. I was a 50 cal gunner. And so if you guys seen Black Hawk Down, the big machine guns on the back of the Humvees, that's, 50 cal. So it, you can guess that being 20 years old, driving on the road with a 50 cal can kind of cause some issues. Coming home and getting out of the military, the reintegration into society is not very easy. You almost become passive-aggressively suicidal overseas because you get to the point where you realize I could die any minute, and you become okay with the fact that you're going to die. Doesn't always happen.
It's ingrained in who you are a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much. Nobody wants to die over there, but the ultimate death is a warrior's death to a veteran.
Absolutely.
But while we're over there, nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to come home, and luckily, everybody on my squads, we all came home. So we never had to worry about that, which thank God. But then when you get back, there's no real coaching. There's nobody to pretty much hold your hand and teach you. Hey, this is how you, this is how you become a civilian.
Right.
When you're never really a civilian, you're a veteran. So the hard thing is getting out. You tend to seclude yourself from society. You become a recluse. You don't really open up. You try to hide your feelings. You bury all your emotions, and obviously that's not good for mental health.
And that happened with you specifically? You kind of have a powerful story that led you to this organization.
In 2015, I was probably at my worst. I was an alcoholic. I had 2 kids, but I was not a very happy person. I was pretty depressed. PTSD had a pretty tight grip on me. I actually decided to take a trip up to the Boundary Waters, and I went up there to kill myself. I didn't want to be here anymore. It got to the point where, my anger and my frustration from being overseas and then coming back and having just an immense amount of hatred for I don't know what. My relationship wasn't, my marriage wasn't going great. That, had a lot to do with it as well. Being an alcoholic was obviously not a good contributor to that. So I went up to the Boundary Waters for 5 days by myself just to take some time, to really decide if that's what I really wanted to do. And I loaded all my own ammo for my 9mm, and I've never had a misfire on any round that I've ever made myself. So on that last day, I decided to, pull out to an island and sit down, and I pulled the trigger. Luckily, 1 round out of over 5,000, it didn't go off. The primer was a dud. So I decided to spend the rest of my life figuring out what can I do for veterans to keep them from going down that dark path. How can I help my brothers? How can I help my sisters? But I can't do any of that until I fix myself. So what I did was I started fighting MMA, I started training jiu-jitsu, I started hiking, I started doing all of these different things that, took my mind off of it. But not only took my mind off of it, it got me really pushing through and working through my emotions. And I started talking to people about some of the issues that I was having. And I realized that being vulnerable is the #1 step towards healing yourself. Because when you're vulnerable to the people that you love, they can get inside you and they can help you heal. Nobody can help you heal until you're vulnerable to the ones you love.
So then, talking about Warrior's Next Adventure, that specific idea in your organization, How did that come to fruition? And then what does the organization do? What is the mission, and what do you help veterans with?
Yeah, so Warriors Next Adventure, it's a nonprofit for recreational therapy. So recreational therapy is pretty much using anything other than sitting on a couch talking to a counselor as therapy. So I take veterans hiking, we go fishing, we go mountain climbing, we train jiu-jitsu. I teach, there's a couple veterans, we do photography with each other. I intend to start doing a lot more. It's just, just getting started. So my plans are, I'm 10 years ahead of the game already. Yeah. It's just, I got to make it happen,
Right.
So mainly what we do is we do what's called the WNA Top 50. So what we're doing is I'm taking groups of veterans, we go to a certain location, we climb the highest mountain peak in that state.
Okay.
So we've climbed Eagle Mountain in Minnesota. I had 5 veterans on that one. We climbed Mount Marcy in New York, which was a 17-mile hike. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of conversations, and we had a lot of, tough times on that trip, considering it was a 5,000 elevation gain. Yeah. But what I do when we're doing these things is I'm actually helping counsel them. Okay. So I am not a counselor. I tell people this all the time. Yep. However, with the amount of experience that I've had with myself and with other veterans, what I do is I try to help them get a different perspective in life. And I try to rebuild that mission, rebuild that camaraderie that we used to have in the military. Mm-hmm. And we use each other as like a peer-to-peer counseling.
Wow.
So I'm open 24 hours a day. My cell phone is plastered all over everything, and I'm open for a 24-hour suicide hotline. So anybody that ever needs to talk, just call me.
What do you find when you go on these adventures and really, like we said, these recreational counseling sessions, so to speak? What do you find that most veterans are dealing with? What are the things that they're thinking about? What are their struggles? Besides the reintegration piece, what specifically about life, when you come on back, are they struggling with?
Seclusion is one of the big ones. Not having the tools to figure out how to deal with everyday life, mm-hmm. because a lot of us don't want to reach out. A lot of us don't want to talk to other people because when you go overseas, you meet the best friends that you'll probably never see again. Mm-hmm. These people are your brothers or your sisters. You literally die for them. And then they're ripped out of your hands and you never get to see them again. Hmm. So essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to rebuild that camaraderie. I'm rebuilding the veteran brotherhood all across the country. So I'm not taking people from all across the country and going here. What I'm doing is when I went to New York, I took all of the veterans in New York and they all came to me. Mm. So what we did is we went out on these hikes and I introduced everybody together. And we're just recreating brotherhoods. Yeah. So now these guys go fishing together. These guys go hiking together. There's a few that were actually dating for a period of time, which was that was kind of cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah, apparently I'm starting a dating site soon.
Ultimate
too.
Matchmaker, right? Something along those lines.
But it's
incredible.
Camaraderie and a sense of purpose are two of the main things that we miss.
How do veterans typically find your organization, or how do they hear about you, Nick?
I am everywhere. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to figure out Twitter. I'm not quite there yet.
Twitter can be a cesspool. I'm just listen, my 2 cents. It's like, what good comes out of Twitter?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I actually started a vlog. This whole thing started as a blog.
Yes.
My grammatical errors and a lot of people making fun of me for some of my spelling errors. I'm not the brightest bulb when it comes to that. I just started to start a vlog. So I do a vlog on YouTube. So what I do is I try to take a subject and I try to talk about it for about 5 minutes or so. I've shared posts about vulnerability, about how veterans need to be vulnerable. And what that means is not complaining about all your problems, but if you have something that's internally eating you alive on the inside and might drive you to suicide, you need to talk to somebody about it. Mm-hmm. Whether it's me, whether it's going to see a counselor or going to talk to, the VA. There's vet centers all across the country. There's so many resources out there, but veterans have a tough time reaching out to people who are not veterans.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I have such an impact. Right. Is because I've been overseas. I served in Iraq, served in Afghanistan, and I've been through some pretty sticky situations overseas, and so sharing some of my stories of how I've struggled and how I've bloomed into what I am now, I'm finally happy.
Yeah.
Warriors Next Adventure it's not just for other veterans, it's for me.
Right.
Because I literally get to provide experiences for veterans that could possibly change their life.
How do you go about kind of developing a curriculum or an area of focus when you're bringing these men and women out on their specific adventure? How do you know what to do, or how do you know where to go?
Sometimes you don't need to know.
Okay.
You just need another veteran to listen. A lot of times I just listen and they talk. And just having that conversation alone is healing. And for me, it's healing because I get to hear some of the stories and some of the pain and some of the hatred, some of the hatred that veterans have for everyday life.
Yeah.
And I'm such an empath, I can feel everything that they're saying.
Right.
So I just use some of the stories from my past and some of the lessons that I've learned throughout all my travels, and I just try to give them a different perspective in life. I try to give them some sort of mission. One of my favorite projects is actually up at Minnesota Wolf Dogs. So there's a wolf dog sanctuary in Sandstone. What I'm doing with them is I'm actually taking veterans up there and I'm giving them a purpose. I'm giving them a mission. So what we do is we go up, we build dog houses for the wolves. Right now they have about, I think it's about 10 wolf dogs.
Wow.
So they're all percentage wolf and percentage dog.
Sure.
So what we do is we actually get to interact with these animals. So seeing a veteran interacting with a wolf and seeing their face light up when they actually get a wolf to come up and take food out of their own hands,
Yeah.
it's inspiring.
Right.
Because you get to see them doing something that they've never done before, and that little spark of inspiration can completely change the outlook that somebody has in their life.
So taking your specific organization, Nick, from an idea to a reality, to something that you want to grow, and it sounds like there's lots of things in the works that we're going to get into a little bit later. But what was that process like? You knew that you wanted to help, you knew that you had an experience, and that you knew other veterans were going through a similar experience. How did it go from that to Warrior's Next Adventure?
Well, it all initially started last year. I'm actually part of another nonprofit called LEAP. It's Life Enhancement Audiovisual Program. So we actually go to nursing homes and we talk to them about some of the things that they miss in life. And almost all of it is scenery, and they like to see, different things around the area that they can't go to anymore because either physical ailments or mental ailments. So we go out and we film documentaries. So I had a friend of mine, Oren, he's actually the founder of LEAP. He asked me if I wanted to come out and do a documentary with him, and I had never really done something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'll try it. He's like, yeah, you get to rappel off of waterfalls, and I was like, I'm in.
Huh?
Yeah. I'll do it.
Sounds like a good gig.
Yeah, so we hiked to 13 different waterfalls just last year alone. We did it in the summer and we did it in the winter, so we could get the summer and the winter with the waterfalls frozen. And those hikes were just amazing to me. I felt so alive. I get to see new things. It's a new adventure, And how I actually came up with Warrior's Next Adventure was on one of these trips. I was talking about how I want to help other veterans, and I was actually walking across a waterfall, and I slipped and I fell, and while I was midair, I came up with Warrior's Next Adventure, that's it, and then I smacked down on the ground. I was like, yep. So I stood up and I yelled it across the waterfall. I'm like, Warrior's Next Adventure, that's it. And that's how we came up with it, and I just kind of ran with it.
So you got knocked on the head is what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's awesome.
I was actually an MMA fighter. I was ranked pretty high in Minnesota recently. I was knocked out June 1st, and I actually had a TBI of last year.
Okay.
So my whole life changed.
What was that
after
process like, by the way? The sidebar.
It was rough.
Yeah.
I lost some vision. My speech was impaired slightly. I was stuttering a lot. It's much better now.
Okay.
Obviously, as you can tell, I'm
great.
speaking slightly smoother than I was. But I couldn't fight anymore, so I needed to find something else. And I was doing this hikes through these waterfalls at the same time, and it all just kind of came together. And I feel like some sort of inspiration was knocked into my head when I got knocked out. And so now I've just been on a roll with, I think about something and I figure out how I'm going to make it happen. I don't know how I do it, it just happens. So I ended up taking a trip to Hawaii in February. I spent 8 days. I hiked about 46 miles. I climbed 3 mountains. I swam inside of an underground cave. I met hundreds of people that I've never met before. It was the most amazing experience ever. And I realized, this is what I need to do. I need to show veterans something different. I need to spark their interest. I need to give them some inspiration. So I started sharing all of my travels, and I realized that it's mostly veterans who were reacting to the things that I was putting out. I actually met a friend of mine in Hawaii who I hadn't seen in years, just come to find out they were in Hawaii at the same time. They told me, you need to start a blog now.
Yeah.
So I shared some of my stories with them. I got back, and within 2 weeks, I started a blog, and Warrior's Next Adventure was a website.
Right.
About 2 weeks later, it was a business. About a month and a half later, I was doing my first trips with other veterans. And then July 27th, the day I got back from Mount Marcy after my big trip, I got my approval letter for my 501c3.
Unbelievable.
So it's just, things just keep happening.
Just keep
I don't know how, but it keeps
lining
happening.
up. It seems almost too good to be lucky, huh?
Nobody has my passion. nobody has the passion that I do, and that's why I will be successful with this.
So let's talk then about kind of the longer term vision of the organization. You know, obviously you're taking trips and you have veterans who are, it's certainly gaining interest, obviously, and it sounds like there's a big need for this veteran on veteran, relational, call it counseling, but like you said, recreational counseling. What do you envision for this organization? What do you want it to be, Nick?
Well, mainly I'd like to get to the point where I can, find somehow get a grant for salary so I can actually do this full time. If I can do this full time, it opens me up to many more opportunities. There's plenty of veterans who have reached out that I wasn't able to help because of my work schedule, and I got to pay the bills.
Right.
But eventually down the road, what I want to do is I want to have a certain amount of property, and I want to build a veterans ranch. So one thing I want to do is build a veterans retreat, and I could take all of the skills that I have, because I was a carpenter, I worked on auto, I trained jiu-jitsu, I teach veterans how to lift weight and get in better shape. I want to take all of that and put it into a ranch, create a hobby farm and a retreat for veterans, because sometimes, just this week, I've had 6 veterans reach out and ask me if there's somewhere they can go, just to disappear for a week. I want to be that place that they can go.
Yeah.
Because if they come to me, they're in safekeeping. I can teach them something. We can do a project together. We can go hiking. We can go do something together. And that brotherhood is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because when we're in Iraq and we're in Afghanistan, there's 20 to 30 of us. We sleep together. We wake up together. We shower together, unfortunately. We go to chow together. We work together. We clean our guns together. We do everything together. And then you get home and it's just ripped out of your hands.
Right.
So what I want to do is I want to get veterans to understand that the brotherhood's not gone. You just have to find out where they are. And what I'm trying to do is provide that brotherhood for other veterans. When I go to different locations, I bring everybody in that location to me. We all meet each other. We all heal each other. And I'm learning every single day what I need to say and what I need to do for veterans, because it just happens naturally.
We talked prior to the show about how, veterans comprise 1% of people, and everyone knows a veteran, or at least potentially a veteran who's struggling. And really, Nick, you're talking about your experience with veterans, your organization, what you actually provide for people. What can our audience learn from the outside who may not be veterans about what a veteran goes through, both overseas or wherever they're stationed, and when they come home? What don't we understand as a general public?
Well, everyday life is very safe. Overseas, you can get hit by a mortar at any second. There's one deployment I was on, we got hit every single day. Where our heightened sense of awareness, our fight or flight, is constant. It's never ending. And then you get home and you're just expected to turn that off. So veterans can be a little, I don't want to say unstable, but they can be quick to react because that's how we survived. So coming home, what we're trying to do is figure out, how do we adjust? So these trips help veterans learn different skills to help them adjust. So one of the main things you could do is, I tell people all the time, they ask, how can I help a veteran? If you're not sure, there's so many veteran nonprofits out there that are doing great things. Obviously, I'm going to say donate to Warrior's Next Venture, because I can reach a lot of veterans. The more people that donate, the more veterans that I can reach. And I always say, if this saves one life, it's worth it.
Amen.
But there's actually something called the Minnesota Military Exchange. I'm working with them, and I'm helping them create something. They're taking all of the veteran nonprofits and all the veteran services, and they're putting them under an umbrella. And they're making it more organized. So one of the things that is hard for veterans, we don't know where to start sometimes, because there is a lot out there.
And it's wide open. I mean, there's a lot you can do, right?
There's a lot out there,
overwhelming.
But it's disorganized chaos.
Yeah.
So what they're trying to do is put it all together, and they're trying to organize everything. Do one section for finance, one section for mental health.
Sure.
So a veteran has a one-stop shop to actually have a place to go. So I'm working alongside with them. They've been great. So they've been a huge part in my success as well, because through helping them, I eventually helped myself. I should say the nonprofit.
Yeah.
Because I've slowly been growing over time, and they've had a lot to do with it.
Now, it's not just Minnesota veterans that you serve, and I think that's important for our audience to know. You were serving veterans across the country. I'm interested. You talked about the New York trip earlier on.
Yes.
How do you prioritize, where you go, or is it clusters of people, or how do you determine which areas you're going to go out to?
A lot of this started with, I'm very good at networking. I'm a 911 dispatcher as my day job. I'm very good at networking.
Sure.
I know how to find things. I know how to find people. So one of the things that I do often is I do spend a lot of time on Facebook. There are so many veteran communities out there. I actually help run and I admin a lot of veteran pages. Some of them are not veterans, but they're loaded with veterans.
Sure.
So what I do is I look. I'm constantly looking. I'm looking for people who are either hurting, people who are saying things that kind of make me a little nervous.
Yeah.
That they could either be suicidal or they're having issues. And mainly just me being vulnerable to other veterans and telling them, look, if you contact me at any point, I am not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. However, anything you say to me stays between me and you.
Yeah.
They have someone safe that they can reach out to and talk to, because I'm not going to judge them. I don't care what they've done, right or wrong. All I know is I want them to improve with their lives. So conversations with, between us usually are very, I lost my word.
No,
They're very
intimate, maybe. That's fine.
This is the brain damage kicking in.
Hey, no, I get that.
Edit this part out.
You're doing fine. No, but it was interesting. You brought up the point that as you have more and more sessions and you network with more and more veterans and you actually have intimate conversations with people who are going through similar struggles, that it actually helps you in that. I'm interested. So beyond the really dark point, the attempted suicide in your life. What have you learned that's new from other veterans since you started Warrior's Next Adventure?
Well, it's just, different ways of communication. One thing I've learned that veterans have many different interests. So I hate painting, but
Sure.
There's a group of veterans who like it, and so I went out and I went painting with them. There's actually a few other things I'm trying to work on, trying to get some painting galas together to do some small fundraisers. There's some veterans who like video games. I don't play video games. However, because they do, I go out and do it with them. So I would try anything. If there's
Sure.
a veteran who's interested in something, I'll go out and do it with them. I have veterans who actually come out and spend time with me. I open up my couch to veterans all the time. So my couch is used quite a bit. So we get together and we talk beforehand. If they come out and spend a few days, I ask them, what are your interests?
Yeah.
And we just go out and do whatever they want to do.
Okay.
Because a lot of times I'm trying to introduce veterans to new things. However, I'm getting introduced to something new constantly.
Yeah.
Like getting involved in photography and video editing. There's so many different forms of therapy out there. What I'm learning is veterans all have a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
The ones who don't have a coping mechanism usually are the ones who are struggling. So whether it be photography, jiu-jitsu, something physical, there's always tons of options.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from veterans who've gone on trips from you? What are some case studies, some success stories, that kind of thing?
I've had a lot of veterans reach out personally. The majority of them actually reach out personally, which is nice.
Yeah.
I keep those conversations to myself because that's for me to know and for them to know. However, every single one of them said it's life-changing. Not only the trip or saying Lake Mount Marcy. My friend Bob's actually coming to visit me soon. He told me that he never realized how much strength he has. It was a 17-mile hike. It took us 9.5 hours to climb that mountain. And just the fact that he actually got to say, I conquered a mountain.
Yeah.
If you can climb a mountain, you can do anything.
And I think it's good for our audience to know and understand. I mean, these are people who have gone to battle saying this. I never knew I was so strong, right? I mean, as a veteran, at least from a total outside perspective, it's like these are some of the strongest people on earth.
A lot of veterans, they give up hope. They lose hope when they get back. And I'm trying to reinstill it in them. I'm trying to reinstill adventure. Because we had our greatest moments overseas. I was 20 years old driving down the road, flying in Chinooks and flying in Blackhawks and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And then I get back and I was a pizza delivery driver.
Right.
Talk about losing hope.
That's incredible. You're right.
So now what I'm trying to do is get veterans to realize that no matter where you are at, you can improve in your life. You just have to be vulnerable to others, and you need to accept your past and realize that there is a positive future ahead of you. You can create it.
So Nick, with our last couple of minutes here, how can our viewers help you out, learn more about your organization? Where can they find more information on what it is you do and who you help? But more importantly, and most importantly, what do you need help with to help make this thing run and help more veterans?
Well, as of now, Funding is the only thing slowing me down. Donations can be sent anywhere. Facebook Donate is actually free. There's 0 fees. It takes a little longer for me to get it, but if you go to warriorsnextadventure.com, there's a donate button on there. There's also a donate tab. There's a PayPal is just warriorsnextadventure@gmail.com. We also have a GoFundMe. And then any letters can just be send an email to warriorsnextadventure@gmail.com, and I'll give you the correct address to send stuff to.
Sure.
We're doing a few fundraisers here and there. We're trying to see what we can do to try to get more people to understand what it is we're trying to do. It's hard to tell certain people what it is we do, because they don't understand the fact that veterans, they need an adventure.
Yeah.
Because we spent 6 to 12 years in the military, just nonstop adventure.
Right.
We get out and you feel stuck.
Right.
So what I do is I offer an escape. I give warriors their next adventure. We go out and we climb a mountain, we shoot some films, we go shooting, we go do whatever it is that veterans want to do just to get them an escape. But at the same time, we have a lot of deep, in-depth conversation while we're out there.
So Nick, we talked before about how funding was mission critical for the organization to grow and thrive. And speaking of that funding, you have a couple of events coming up, specifically a gala. What is that about? Where is it? And what do you hope to accomplish from it?
Yeah, so it's at Jimmy's Event Center. They have a beautiful ballroom. I could fit 500 people in there. So what I'm trying to do is raise funding for next year. If I can raise $50,000, that'll cover me for next year and some. So what I need to do is I'm trying to sell tickets. They're $75 a person. It's a black tie event, so it's a reason to get dressed up on New Year's Eve.
Sure.
So it's on the eve of New Year's. It starts at 6 o'clock and it goes till about 9:30. But we'll have a DJ and everything until midnight. We serving champagne to everybody. Everybody gets it's a 3-course meal. We'll also have a silent auction. We got some pretty cool items coming out.
Okay.
We're still taking in items as well. We have, I believe, 7 or 8 auction items so far. We're trying to get at least 10.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do here is just get everybody together and raise awareness for veterans.
Okay.
So I'm not making this only about Warriors Next Adventure. I'm making it about veteran awareness. So anybody who wants to support veterans or who wants to come out and support my cause is directly supporting veterans.
Okay.
So if we can raise the money for next year, we can get out, we can do a lot more trips. I'm actually raising money for, we're going to Colorado. We're climbing Mount Elbert. It's the highest mountain it's the second highest mountain in the lower 48.
Okay.
It's a little over 14,400 feet. So it's gonna be a rough climb.
Yeah.
I got a group of veterans that are gonna be climbing out there. So far we've got about 9. So I need money to get out there. I need money for housing. We're actually gonna be staying in a bunkhouse, and we're trying to get as many veterans together as possible. We're also debating on climbing Mount Whitney or climbing Mount Rainier. We are also doing a 8-man retreat up at the Boundary Waters. So I'm taking 8 veterans. I'm paying for all of them to go up. We're doing a 4-day, 3-night canoe trip up to the Boundary Waters. We're gonna have a seclusion retreat. So for veterans only. So it's just a group of the guys getting together, and we're gonna have some pretty good conversations on that.
And folks can get tickets for the gala on the website, or where would they find that information?
Yeah, so you can get tickets on warriorsnextadventure.com. You can go to Facebook. We have Warriors Next Adventure New Year's Eve Gala. You can also go to Eventbrite. All tickets are sold on Eventbrite. So you can just go to Eventbrite, type in Warriors Next Adventure New Year's Eve, or you can go to Google, just type in New Year's Eve 2020 Warriors Next Adventure, and it should be right there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nick, thanks so much for joining the Republican Roundtable.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.